Which dynasty players are the biggest risers over the last month? We're talking about that in today's video. As always, like the video and subscribe to the channel. We put out content all year long. And in today's video, we're looking at some players from the running backs, wide receiver, and tight end position who are the biggest risers in Dynasty over the last 30 days. Now, this is according to keeptradecut. Keeptradecut is not the perfect website. It's not the perfect ranking or trade calculator. However, what I like about keeptradecut is that it's community-based. The rankings are all community-based. When you go onto the website, they ask you, keeptradecut. And it puts together the rankings based on how you would keep, trade, or cut, right? And so it's how the community is feeling about these players. It's a pretty good understanding. Again, not perfect. Definitely not perfect. But what we're doing today is we're looking at the biggest risers. What players are rising in each position group? And we're going to talk about, does this make sense? Why are they rising? Should we capitalize on this? Should we sell high? Or should we still try and buy low? That's what we're talking about in today's video. First up, we have Derrick Henry, who is one of the biggest risers at the running back position. It is a fairly minimal rise, but that's to be expected when you're already ranked in the top 24 or so. He's gone from RB22 to RB18. Don't really have much to say here about Derrick Henry, other than the fact of the matter is Derrick Henry, if he's healthy, is going to put up, 1,500, 1,700 total yards and double-digit touchdowns. He's going to have a big year. Maybe he's going to be inefficient, but he's going to get most of the carries. He's going to, he'll catch his 20 to 30 balls, and he's on a really good offense, and he's going to be in position to score a lot of touchdowns. My only worry, I guess, is, being on the Ravens, a team that has Super Bowl aspirations. Are they going to maybe rest him a little bit more in the beginning of the year and kind of get him going in November, December and gear up for the playoffs? We'll see. But really nothing else to say about that. Next up, we have Braylon Allen going from RB52 to RB44. So it's a 12-spot jump here. And I think most people are expecting Braylon Allen to be the RB2 behind Breece Hall, which is why we get this ranking jump, right? I think there was actually news a week or two ago that Braylon Allen was looking like the second backup running back. And I'm fine. I think he has the best chance to be the backup running back just from where they drafted him to the skill set that, he possesses. And, going into the college year, into 2023, he was considered like the top running back potentially in college football, and like kind of almost penciled in as like a day 2 pick in the NFL draft. And he dropped to the 5th round, but that talent that made him good is still there. I mean, the guy is only 20 years old. He dominated as a 17-year-old at Wisconsin and just had in terms of efficiency numbers, a down year at Wisconsin in 2023. But if he can recapture that, then I agree. I wouldn't sleep on Isaiah Davis and even Israel Abanikanda. I would hold on to both those guys. Abanikanda was a rookie last year, 5th rounder, if I remember correctly. And, didn't do much last year, but had a lot of, the size, speed combination type of stuff that is intriguing. And then Isaiah Davis was actually is a rookie this year. And the Jets drafted him in the 6th round, a round after they drafted Braylon Allen. I think Braylon Allen was 5th. Maybe he was 4th. I'm trying to remember now. I'm just going to double check that. He was 4th round. And Isaiah Davis was a 5th rounder, I believe. Yes, 5th rounder. So they drafted Isaiah Davis in the 5th round, right? Any one of those three, in my opinion, could still be the backup running back. If I had to rank them, I would go Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis, and Israel Abanikanda. I would hold on to all those guys, at least during training camp, to see how it kind of shapes out. Next up, we have Ty Chandler, the RB64. He's risen from the RB64 to the RB53. That's an 11-spot jump. And again, this comes from the news of, the Vikings are going to use a little bit more of a split, right? They're going to use a little bit more of, Aaron Jones and Ty Chandler, and not all Aaron Jones. And I think that kind of makes sense. I guess my only worry is I'm fine with where he's ranked. I'm not saying he shouldn't be ranked, as RB53 or whatever, because he is a backup running back, and all backup running backs should be on rosters because we know how easy it is for them to become fantasy relevant. All you need is an injury, and running backs always get injured. I would temper my expectations about what this backfield is in terms of a split. Is it going to be 50-50? I would guess not. I would guess at best it's like a 60-40, maybe a 55-45, but probably like a 60-40 or even a 65-35 split. And I imagine that Aaron Jones is going to get all the value touches. He's going to get the touchdown work. He's going to get the catches, more catches than Ty Chandler. Aaron Jones in the past was a pretty big touchdown machine. He had 3 straight years of double-digit touchdowns, including a year where he had 19. So, he scored 40 touchdowns over a 3-year stretch. So I still expect Aaron Jones to kind of get all the value touches. And yeah, Ty Chandler will be used every now and then, but without an injury to Aaron Jones, I don't really expect much from Ty Chandler. But we saw what he's capable of if he does get, the full workload. We saw a couple games there late in the season, 23 carries for 132 yards and things like that. So, and then the last running back here is Jaleel McLaughlin. And this is probably going to continue to rise because that report about Javonte Williams maybe not even making the team, and Jaleel McLaughlin is the clear cut, or seems to be the number one guy for the Broncos. That report just came out like a few days ago. I'm recording this on June 13th. I think it was earlier this week that report came out. So this is only going to continue to rise. So he's gone from RB53 to RB48. And again, I think you give it another week or two, he's probably going to pretty comfortably be in the top 40 to top 35 potentially. So you can kind of take that both ways. If you have Jaleel McLaughlin, you can be like, well, I think I have the RB1 for the Broncos. If you, or you can approach it of like, maybe I should sell high on Jaleel McLaughlin in July and capitalize on people thinking he's going to be, the workhorse running back for for the Broncos. So I don't, part of me believes what it's true, what's being said about Javonte is potentially true, mostly because I don't think he's kind of Sean Payton's guy, and Sean Payton wants his guys. And now Sean Payton has brought in Samaje Perine in free agency, Jaleel McLaughlin, who I believe undrafted. He drafted Audric Estime, and then there's another guy in Blake Watson, who I actually really like as a potential pass-catching running back for the Broncos. However, you talk about all those guys, so that makes me I tend to think a little bit that maybe Javonte is kind of on the outs for the Broncos. However, I don't think Jaleel McLaughlin's going to be this workhorse running back necessarily. And the guy's like 185 pounds. I just don't think he can hold up. Now, can he still get value touches? Can he still be efficient in a Sean Payton offense, which is generally good for running backs? Yes. So you kind of have a decision to make. I would still hold. I wouldn't sell now. But if he starts getting into like the top 30 running back rankings in Dynasty, top 25, then I would potentially sell on Jaleel McLaughlin. Next up, we move into the receivers. First up, we have Brandon Cooks moving from wide receiver 92 to wide receiver 85. And, I was kind of looking at Brandon Cooks, and I was wondering why is he over the last 30 days? So we're talking about from roughly mid-May to mid-June, he's risen these 7 spots. And again, we're talking about wide receiver 90 and 80s. It's pretty easy to move up and down that list. But I was kind of thinking what happened and why, and I don't really know why he's moving. But I will say this. Cowboys did nothing in the offseason and in the draft to bring in weapons. So it makes Jalen Tolbert pretty intriguing, and I think he's a player that you should potentially try and target. Jalen Tolbert, a rookie from a couple years ago, who's actually up 15 spots, and I would potentially try and buy low on him. And then Brandon Cooks as the wide receiver 2. And I was kind of looking at the numbers last year, and I think it's a little surprising to people if you say Brandon Cooks had 8 touchdowns last year. He was 8 in for the Cowboys last year. And so you kind of look at it, and I was trying to figure out how many in terms of touchdowns, who led in terms of touchdowns. I can't find that off the top of my list. I mean, CeeDee Lamb had 14. I mean, Brandon Cooks had to have been pretty high up that list, right? Looks like he's about tied for top 15 or so with 8 touchdowns. And I was kind of looking at it and his fantasy finish last year. And, he finished as overall as the wide receiver 30 last year. I believe Brandon Cooks, wide receiver 36 last year in half PPR. And, it was because of the touchdowns. It wasn't because of the yards. But I was kind of thinking, what if, I think we would assume that CeeDee Lamb is not going to have another 1,800-yard plus season. Just by law of averages, he's probably going to regress a little bit. He's still going to be awesome. But what if he regresses by a couple hundred yards and that goes to Brandon Cooks? So now you're talking about a player who has 900 receiving yards, 8 touchdowns, and 65 catches. And you kind of look at it and that would put him close to a top 24 receiver if he gets just a couple hundred more yards. So kind of interesting. And I know he's getting old and things like that. But you look at his 2022 season with Houston, he had 700 yards and 57 catches in 13 games. You stat that out, and he was kind of on pace for a 70-catch, 900-yard season. If he does that with Dallas and can still get some touchdowns, then we're looking at a solid, bye-week replacement wide receiver. So just something to think about. Demario Douglas is another riser here from wide receiver 74 to 69. 5 spots, nothing huge to write home about, but he's another intriguing player because we have an ambiguous wide receiver room for the Patriots. I always tell people, try to target these ambiguous rooms, these running back rooms and these wide receiver rooms where you don't really know. It's very unclear about who's the top guy, who's the second guy, and the Patriots are one of those. Who's the top wide receiver for the Patriots right now? I mean, if you go by depth chart, it's Kendrick Bourne. It's Kendrick Bourne, Demario Douglas, Jalen Polk. But between Kendrick Bourne, Demario Douglas, Jalen Polk, Javon Baker, hell, even Juju and KJ Osborne, any one of those guys could be the 1 or 2 in my opinion. So Demario Douglas is intriguing for that reason. I give him one of the better chances to be, along with maybe Jalen Polk. And, I give him potentially the best chance to lead this team in targets. He's going to be maybe better PPR than anything else. He's not going to score 10 touchdowns or anything. Actually, he had 0 last year. But if you look at his pace from when he basically became a starter in week 7, weeks 1 through 5, he had, he wasn't really playing that much, less than 50% of the snaps and less than 35% in most of those games. But from week 7 on was when he really started to play and get more playing time, 60, 70, 80% of the snaps. So 9 games, because he missed 2 in that stretch. He had 62 targets in 9 games. And if you stat that out, you're looking at a guy that would have over 115 targets. Is he going to get that this year? I don't think so, but they could just be a better offense. Probably are. They're almost assuredly going to be a better offense. Demario Douglas has proven he can draw targets. Again, from week 7 on, he did not have less than 5 targets in a game. And he was consistently getting 7 or 8 targets, 6, 7, 8 targets. So take for it what you will. But I think there's a sneaky chance that Demario Douglas is just we look at the end of the year, it's oh crap, Demario Douglas is, he's a 80 catch, 950-yard receiver or something like that. So once again, take it how you will. Rashee Rice has moved up from wide receiver 46 to wide receiver 33. Probably, I think the biggest on this list, moving up 13 spots according to keeptradecut. And I was telling people a month ago, 2 months ago, buy low on Rashee Rice. Please buy low on him. He's falling and falling and falling. He got all the way down to the wide receiver 46. Are you kidding me? That is ridiculous in my opinion. I mean, you look at the other rookies from last year, Zay Flowers, wide receiver 20, Tank Dell, wide receiver 21, JSN, wide receiver 24, Jordan Addison, wide receiver 25. Like, that's where Rashee Rice should be, and that's where he's going to get to, in my opinion. I know he's potentially going to be suspended, but this is Dynasty. This is Dynasty, and there's a chance he's only suspended 3 or 4 games. We see it over and over in the NFL. These guys do terrible things, and they get 3 games, 4 games, right? Like, there's a chance that he's out for 3 or 4 games, and then he's back, and he's paired with Mahomes. Like, it's crazy that you could have bought him at the wide receiver 46, and I would still buy him as the wide receiver 33 if you can. If you can buy low on him. So it's just funny how we are. Like, nothing's really changed in the Rashee Rice world, except for the fact that he's looked really good at like these OTAs and stuff. But in terms of the suspension stuff, nothing's changed. Why did he fall to 46 and now he's back up to 33? Doesn't really make sense in my opinion. Doesn't make sense at all. One last receiver here, and that's Rashad Bateman. He's moved up 6 spots, wide receiver 77 to 71. You know, he's getting hyped up once again about, you know, oh, he's going to be a significant contributor to this team, and, you know, he's going to whatever. Like, I don't believe it, guys. Like, if you want to buy low on Rashad Bateman, go for it. He's shown us for 3 years now that I don't think he's going to be very good. Maybe he can get to like a nice field stretcher, 700 yards, you know, average 15 yards of reception and catch 4 or 5 touchdowns. That's not going to do anything for fantasy. The ship has sailed, in my opinion, on him being fantasy relevant. Once again, we've seen it. You know, he had a solid rookie year. He got hurt in his second year, but still also wasn't really doing much the first 6 games or so of 2022. And then last year, he literally played in 16 of 17 games. He had 32 catches and 365 yards. And think about the wide receiver room for Baltimore. Was it this amazing? That's why he was behind all these amazing players. He was behind Odell Beckham. He was behind Nelson Aguilar, right? I think Nelson Aguilar had a better year than him. He had basically the same year as him, 35 catches for 380 yards. So he was equivalent to Nelson Aguilar. He couldn't even do better than him. He was worse than Odell Beckham. He was worse than a rookie in Zay Flowers. Even when Mark Andrews left, I mean, Rashad Bateman wasn't doing much. So I don't really want to buy into it that much. If you want to, go for it, but it's just not for me. Last up, we got the tight ends. We'll kind of go through these and see the biggest risers. Daniel Bellinger is one. He's moved from tight end 33 to tight end 27. Obviously, Darren Waller retiring. Fine. If you want to go in on down Daniel Bellinger, go for it. I'm not that excited. I'm more excited about Theo Johnson than I am Daniel Bellinger. So I just don't think Daniel Bellinger is going to be a player we're talking about in the 2024 season. So I understand why he's moving up, but I don't really want to buy into it. Now, this guy, Noah Fant, tight end 32 to tight end 28. He's been a player that this whole offseason I've been saying, Noah Fant, every year we get tight ends that no one's even thinking about that are in redraft or drafted around 12, 13, 14 that finish in the top 5 or top 6. Almost every year. There's multiple tight ends that do it. Right? Absolutely multiple tight ends. Last year, you know, it was a rookie in Laporta, right? Was one of those guys. The rookie in Laporta, Njoku was another one of those guys. No one was thinking Njoku was going to be anything, right? And he was. So, Noah Fant, to me, and speaking of Njoku, they have very comparable career paths. Both first-round picks, super athletic tight ends, that have all the physical traits to just be a monster, who have been disappointing in terms of where they were drafted. They've had a couple good seasons, right? A couple solid seasons, but overall they've been disappointing, right? Like Njoku before this last year, he had 2 years of 55 catches and 600 yards. That's okay for a tight end. That's a streamable tight end. Noah Fant, kind of the same. Two years of basically 65 catches and 650 yards. Those are streamable numbers. But it's not what we expected for them being drafted as a first-round pick. And then Njoku just catches on fire because the team or the quarterback or whoever finally starts to use them, right? Finally starts to use them. Yeah? They finally start to feature him, and David Njoku is awesome, right? He's a top 6 tight end, and he goes on a run where he was winning people leagues because he was that damn good. That damn good. Yeah? So, same thing, in my opinion, could potentially happen with Noah Fant, in my opinion. Same thing could potentially happen. So, just because he's super athletic, I think there's potential boom season for him. We'll see. Now, the offensive coordinator of the University of Washington is the offensive coordinator for Seattle. And I was kind of just looking at Washington's numbers, and they had a tight end, Jack Westover, who, despite being behind Roma Dunze, Jalen Polk, and Jalen McMillan, 3 receivers drafted in rounds 1, 2, and 3, respectively, he still had a pretty decent season in 46 catches and 433 yards. In fact, their top 2 tight ends combined for about 650 yards and 60 catches, which is pretty good, again, considering you're behind a top 10 pick, an early second-round pick, and a third-round pick at receiver. Noah Fant, if they decide to feature him just a little bit more, he could be pretty damn good this year. And when I say good, as a low-end tight end 1. Jelani Woods, from tight end 37 to tight end 31, and I was really interested in why this was happening, and kind of looking at Jelani Woods' numbers. And so here's what I found with Jelani Woods. 1, he's listed as the number 1 tight end on the Colts depth chart. That's a plus. It's also a team where, you have Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, Adonai Mitchell, but there's room for a tight end to be a decent part of that offense, right? As the third target on the team or something. So I saw that. Now, Jelani Woods, if you remember, was drafted pretty high for a tight end in the 2022 draft, He was a 3rd-round pick, a very high 3rd-round pick. He's a monster. He's 6'7", 250 pounds. He didn't play last year because he got hurt. So I looked at his rookie year, and I was a little bit surprised to see that, typical rookie tight end didn't really do much the first 9 weeks. Literally never played more than 40% of the snaps in any game in the first 9 weeks. And then either he got hurt or he was just inactive for the next 2 weeks. And then week 12 to 18 of the 2022 season, Jelani Woods put up some decent numbers. I'm not saying amazing numbers, but he put up some decent numbers. Okay? He put up some decent numbers. He was basically, during that 6-game stretch to end the 2022 season, he was, if you extrapolate that to a full season, he was on pace for 51 catches, which isn't amazing, but 51 catches and 660 yards, which is actually not bad for a tight end, especially a rookie tight end. Remember that he was a rookie. Okay. So, and during that stretch, he actually had 2 games where he played under 25% of the snaps. So maybe if he played a little bit more, those numbers would be even better. So then I went back and looked at, okay, what were the Colts tight ends doing last year? And the Colts tight ends, actually, if you combine all their numbers, were pretty damn good last year. So you had Kylan Granson lead the way with 30 catches for 368 yards. Will Mallory was next with 18 for 207. You combine those two, you're looking at right around 50 catches and 575 yards. Then they had Mo Alley Cox with 13 catches and 161 yards. So you're looking at 63 catches and about 730 yards or so. And then they had Andrew Ogletree catch 9 for 150. So you're looking at about 70 catches, right? 70 catches, 880 yards, not to mention 2, 5, 6 touchdowns. So Is Jelani Woods going to be the main guy? I don't know. I have no idea. But if they do decide to consolidate that a little bit, I'm not saying he's going to get all the tight end targets, but if they consolidate that just a little bit, Jelani Woods might be a decent player where we talk about it at the end of 2024 and be like, holy crap, like Jelani Woods was a streamable tight end throughout the season, right? So there you have it. Last guy on the list is Pat Freiermuth, moved from tight end 16 to 13. I think people are getting a little bit excited about Arthur Smith coming over and what that means for Pat Freiermuth. We'll see. To me, this is not really much of a change. I would potentially sell high on Pat Freiermuth if I could, but there you have it, guys. I don't really know what else to say. Like with Pat Freiermuth, he could be a nice, solid low-end tight end one. So there you have it. Those are the biggest risers in each position group over the last 30 days. Let me know what you think. Next up, we're going to be looking at the biggest fallers. Hope you guys enjoyed it. As always, like and subscribe. Catch you guys all in the next video.